Okay, let's see what these reviews are like.
Familiar with your circumstances, but at first glance, your treatment of this man appears unfair, and I'm obliged to intervene.
War. War never changes. It's the ominous line that opens every game in the 26-year-old Fallout RPG series.
War.
Oh,
War never changes.
But while that may ring true for the tone of the eternal nuclear wasteland setting, thankfully the tide has largely turned for TV adaptations of video games. Following in the footsteps of HBO's The Last of Us and Netflix's Arcane, Prime Video now has itself an all-time great in Fallout, a confident and accomplished post-apocalypse show that proudly wears its heritage on its sleeve, quite literally when it comes to its iconic blue and yellow Vault-Tec costume design, while simultaneously being a compelling sci-fi drama all of its own.
but that's already, I've been optimistic about this because a lot of the trailers, a lot of the footage from the sets and stuff looked pretty good, but it's like we've been burned so many times before. Let's be honest, it's pretty rare. And this is an Amazon show, right? Yeah, it's Amazon. And didn't Amazon, weren't they the guys that did like the god-awful whatever Lord of the Rings show? So like they kind of blew it a little bit. So I was already kind of iffy, but apparently they've done a pretty good job. Rings of Power. Yeah, I was gonna watch it, and then everybody was like, just don't even bother, dude. Don't even bother. I don't know. I don't even know why it's bad. I've just heard everybody unanimously go, yeah, no, it's terrible. I don't know. If somebody knows why it's bad or has strong feelings, let me know. Because maybe it's not that bad, but it's when everybody's unanimous in saying something sucks, I don't really want to spend tens of hours giving it a shot. You know, I just don't know if I have the patience.
It's not hard to see why Amazon went to bat for Fallout. This is a weird, often hyper-violent, sometimes satirical black comedy that sits comfortably next to The Boys. While never quite as puerile or gross as some of Vault's most extreme moments, Fallout consistently uses the darkness of its irradiated landscape to spin surreal jokes. From a talking brain in a jar to an organ-harvesting robot spouting the honeyed tones of Matt Berry.
I'm simply going to harvest your organs.
Produced by Westworld's Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, Fallout is set canonically within the world and continuity of the games, but its 8-episode story is not directly connected to anything you may have played. That means no prior experience is necessary in order to jump in with this entirely new cast of characters, starting with Ella Purnell's Lucy. Raised in Vault 33, one of many Fallout shelters built by the Vault-Tec company over 200 years ago, she's never known life outside its impressively realized steel and concrete walls. As such, she's an embodiment of the can-do spirit of pre-war America, which has been preserved for generations in this underground tin can. In a knowing echo of Fallout 3's opening, Lucy is forced to explore the surface when her father, played by Carl MacLachlan, goes missing. Bright and sparky, polite and friendly, she's totally unequipped for an adventure in the blasted California that awaits outside the Vault's sealed door.
It's funny because there was that story that broke a week or two ago about how Todd Howard had to talk to the showrunners and tell them what they were doing for Fallout 5 so that they wouldn't overlap storylines or anything. But they basically just ended up doing Fallout 3 again. Like, oh, your father or her father disappears and now she has to go out and try to save him. It's like, so it's Fallout 3 again. You know, like it's just funny because it's all that they do with Fallout at this point is that it's just more of the same, but it's like a trope of Fallout now. So it's like, is it a bad thing or is it just what Fallout is? It's a story about a father and a child at the end of the day, every single time, you know? It's just funny every single time.
The way Purnell is able to project a delightfully naive sense of optimism among so much rusted devastation is the source of many early jokes.
Holy shit, you're an actual vault dweller.
I am.
I thought all you dipshits were dead.
But more importantly, it's the starting point for an engaging character arc that demands she open her eyes to a world where lies and deceit are everywhere and life is cheap. While Fallout does have well-drawn villains hiding in the shadows, the real antagonist is the wasteland itself and the dog-eat-dog attitudes it forces even our heroes to adapt.
I think everyone in this town would agree the force is justified. Unless you willingly stand down now.
Fucking vault dwellers. Jesus.
But while Lucy's outsider status makes her the default protagonist, it's Aaron Moton's Maximus who proves Fallout's most compelling lead. Orphaned as a child, he's found refuge in the Brotherhood of Steel, a faction of military zealots modeled on medieval knights. It's an organization ill-suited to him. Maximus is an awkward, often cowardly man lacking the bolshy confidence of the Brotherhood's power-armored warriors, and that clash creates both great humor and drama. It's through a haphazard lie that he finds his footing in the story, twisting himself into something that he's not, and watching him desperately grapple with that precarious falsehood makes for Fallout's most fascinating moments. It's not always easy to root for Maximus, so flawed is his character, but that complexity made him the figure I found myself most invested in. Lucy and Maximus provide an interesting duality. She's only ever known the safety of the vault, and he's only ever known the brutality of the wasteland. But Fallout has another sharp contrast, that of pre- and post-nuclear destruction, explored fantastically through the Ghoul. Played by Walton Goggins, this
The Ghoul. I just realized we might actually get a Fallout story that is not laughable garbage. And that to me is actually potentially the most exciting thing, because I think one of the problems with Fallout as a franchise since BGS has been at the helm is that they view Fallout first and foremost as escapist entertainment. And while initially that might sound okay, it changes the tone, you know? It changes the tone a lot. So, like, let me see if I can find the original clip of it. You guys remember Emil Pagliarulo? He's like the head writer, head story guy at BGS. Okay? This is a clip from 2008.
Itself is gold for the Elder Scrolls, because right now they are both our children. It is so different. It's this weird, like, Tomorrowland gone awry, and that in itself is gold for someone like me to come in and try to, you know, help create that world. So it's pure escapist entertainment. It's crazy, and you try not to get wrapped up on the seriousness of it.
And I think that's very telling. It's pure escapist entertainment, and you try not to get wrapped up in the seriousness of it. And I think that's what's held back Fallout as long as BGS has been at the helm, which is that they don't take it super seriously. And then when they do, it's at really weird times, and it's not consistent. So you'll have something like in Fallout 4 where your son is kidnapped and you're like, oh my God, I gotta go save him. And you race out into the wastes, and then you spend 15 hours doing base building and completing random various tasks. And then you go back to the really serious story, and then you go do all of this other stuff that's super lighthearted and silly and not that serious. And it makes it really hard to take the story seriously, because it's a constant, like, it's just constantly fighting itself, where it doesn't take itself seriously, but it also does. So it just doesn't really work very well. And it makes it so players don't take it seriously and check out. But this could actually be an instance where we get a much better balanced exposure to the seriousness of the Fallout world, which is pretty cutthroat and diehard. It's one of the reasons why I like Fallout New Vegas so much, because tonally, Fallout New Vegas takes its world very seriously. And the irony of, like, you know, an Elvis impersonator that runs its own gang and everything, that's not lost on the player, but also the world is serious enough that you can still find it immersive and believable. Whereas in, like, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, it's much harder to get the sense that the world is real and living. So this could actually be really, really cool to finally get a solid Fallout story. You know, it's super cool. I'm excited.
250-year-old irradiated mutant is Fallout's most magnetic presence, a drugged-up lone wanderer with a give-no-shit attitude. Compared to Lucy and Maximus, the Ghoul is the least complex character due to a relatively shallow arc, but he's no doubt the most enjoyable to watch thanks to Goggins' all-in performance.
Knight Titus of the Brotherhood of Steel, stand down or be cut down.
You gotta be f***ing kidding me.
But the Ghoul is just one half of Goggins' role. Fallout frequently takes trips back in time to before the apocalypse to explore the life of the man the Ghoul used to be. An all-American movie star living a charmed life in retro-futuristic Hollywood, Cooper Howard initially seems the boring side of Goggins' dual role, there simply to establish humanity for a character later totally stripped of it. But this story gradually builds into a truly compelling mystery, providing Goggins a much-needed sense of purpose. This plotline is also where Fallout gets to deliver its source material Steel's signature satire, with an anti-capitalism message that's suitably haunting. Cooper's life could have felt relatively divorced from the main events of Fallout, so different is the visual and narrative fabric of the two, but the past directly connects to the present in a much more interesting way than mere backstory. This design is one of Fallout's greatest strengths. Even what can initially feel like superfluous strands, such as the continuing story of Vault 33 after Lucy has left, turn out to be vital building blocks. Everything is propellant and accelerates towards a killer finale. And while there are a couple of episodes in the second half that slightly falter in terms of balance between storylines and momentum, this is an otherwise superbly structured show. Every episode tells its own tale from beginning to end, such as Lucy's run-in with the aforementioned organ harvester, or an encounter with a giant mutant salamander. And while these are clearly smaller parts of a greater whole, they still work as satisfying stories in their own right. In other words, the show is crafted like a chain of RPG quests. It's a welcome change of pace from the mushy plotting and interchangeable episodes of so many other streaming series. That considered, it's baffling that all 8 episodes are launching simultaneously. If Fallout were a weekly show, we'd have the fun and suspense of discussing it relentlessly between debuts. One of the greatest challenges Fallout faced was turning the world of the games into a live-action universe. Thanks to a truckload of Amazon money and talented production designers though, Nolan Joy and showrunners Geneva Robertson-Dworet and Graham Wagner have done an admirable job of it. This is a wonderfully tangible apocalypse, full of colourful oddballs and soundtracked by the 1950s best bops. Every space bursts with personality, much of that arriving via the astonishing attention to detail in all the items, weapons and recognisable iconography. Nuka-Cola bottles litter shelves, characters heal themselves with stim packs, and Vault 33 is inch for inch damn near perfect, right down to the emergency override switches. You don't need to know the games to appreciate the craft behind it, but if you do, there's a lot to love. By far and away the most enjoyable thing though is the Brotherhood of Steel's T60 power armor, which is an absolute delight to watch in action. Where you'd expect something ripped from the games in its computer-generated feel as well as its faithful design, instead we get a largely physical prop that feels incredibly present and powerful. And while Fallout isn't really an all-out action show, when the violence kicks off, it's at its best when the T60 is involved. That's when the bloody mess perk is activated and the delightfully gloopy gore effects get wheeled out. These characters, locations, and situations all feel authentic to Fallout. And yes, while the immaculate, game-accurate production design is partially responsible for this, most of the show's ultimate success is down to the work of Robertson-Dworet and Wagner, and their efforts to make an original story that's distinctly Fallout. It's in direct contrast to Paramount's dull Halo series, which fails to capture the urgency and spectacle of its source material, despite all the ripped from the game's armor designs and FPS action sequences. Fallout's script
Dude, Halo is just so bad though. Like the doubling down on having the helmet off, even when all the fans are like, the fact that you took the helmet off and are so focused on that and like the sex scene and all that stuff. It's like, it's seriously like you didn't talk to a single fan of Halo in the production. Like it's unbelievable. And then they just continue to double down on it. Like, no, this is part of our vision. Everybody's like, shouldn't be. It's a bad vision. But in this case, it actually seems like they're being faithful to it while also doing something a little bit fresh. What's really, really funny is that I think it'll give Fallout fans a good fix. But like maybe it's good that there's not like a Fallout 4 remaster, remake, whatever launching alongside it. Because it might just like remind people of like if you're really into this show for the narrative, for the writing and for the story and the characters, I think playing Fallout 4 might leave you less interested in the franchise, funnily enough. There should be like a Fallout New Vegas remake or something launching alongside this. I think that could actually compel people a little bit more. That's just me. I'm a sucker for Fallout New Vegas.
Nail the humor, capture the satire, and understand the topics of the series, all without leaning on any pre-existing story. This could have been a live-action replica of game characters and cutscenes you've seen before. Instead, it's a fresh and essential story that uses a new medium to enrich the Fallout universe for both die-hard fans and rolls out a welcome mat for new audiences.
Oh,
Well, now
dude's
that's
leg.
a very small drop. and a very, very large bucket of drugs.
A bright and funny apocalypse filled with dark punchlines and bursts of ultra-violence, Fallout stands up there with The Last of Us among the best game adaptations ever made. Brilliantly constructed, its 3 distinct leads travel through cleverly linked storylines that build to a fantastic finale. Along the way, there's a megaton of treats for long-term fans thanks to immaculate production design and attention to detail, but never at the expense of making this an ideal starting point for the uninitiated. It's another special effort from Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, and easily earns a big thumbs up.
That's awesome. I'm very glad. I'm very, very glad. Now I'm excited. Because again, we've been burned on some TV show adaptations. Amazon's had some swings and misses. Other video game adaptations like Halo have been less than thrilling. But to hear that gamers are actually responding really well to it, that's exactly what you would hope for. And so now I'm intrigued. Now I'm very intrigued. So we will probably talk about this on Friday. I don't think I'll get through all 10 episodes in a day and a half or 2 days or whatever, but I'm going to dig into this. Does anyone know when it launches? I guess I could Google it. This is one of the moments where it's like, Google it, Luke, Google it. It says it's available on the 10th. So today, is it out now? 6 p.m. Pacific. Okay, so we're close. We're getting there. We're getting there. He took my thing.